I will call to order this regular meeting of the San Marcos City Council. Today is Tuesday, July 2nd. The time is 6 p.m. Ms. Trevino, would you call the roll?
Mr. Prather. Mr. Scott.
Aye.
Ms. Garza.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Houston.
I'm here.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Gleason.
I'm here.
Thank you. And Mr. Mendoza.
Here.
We have a quorum present.
All right, and Ms. Reyes, did you have something you wanted to make note of?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council and the public. I just wanted to acknowledge that this is Lori Moyer's last city council meeting with us after 36 years of dedicated service to the city. And just want to say thank you, Lori. You are loved, you are appreciated. The marks that you've made on this community are unforgettable, and we will miss you, but we'll be very, very happy to know that we still have you to come and visit us anytime, and we have to hold you to that. But just really, really thank you, heartfelt thank you to all the things that you've done, all the contributions you made to our team. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Laurie. Yeah, as I said before, I believe that you are one city employee who has had done more good for the city than perhaps some others. There may be a small pool, but over 36 years, the improvements and the things that you have done has been great. Your institutional knowledge is wonderful. You have earned this retirement. Have fun. Yes.
Laurie, I want to thank you as well. I've known you for many, many years. I think I served in my first board, and you were in charge of that, and learned a lot from you. I learned to trust you, and we're going to miss you. Mm-hmm. And you're welcome back to come to work whenever you want. Thank you.
Ditto for that. Definitely feel the same way. Mr. Gonzalez, see, my microphone's not working tonight. I said definitely feel that way, Mr. Gonzalez, and I know that we're leaving it in good hands with Rodney, and we're excited to have Rodney join our team, but we're definitely going to miss Lori as well.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, we will move on with our meeting, and our invocation will be given by Pastor Tim Baca of Victory Chapel.
Thank you. And if it's appropriate, let's all bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we come before you today with hearts full of gratitude for the many blessings you have given us, especially for the beautiful city of San Marcos, Texas. We acknowledge your sovereignty and seek your wisdom and guidance in this council meeting. We thank you for the leaders you have blessed us with, for their dedication, and for the talents and skills you have given them. We ask that you bless each member of this council with your divine insight and clarity. May your spirit move among them, guiding these discussions and decisions so that they align with your will and purpose. We pray for unity, that we may work together in harmony, setting aside any differences for the greater good of our community. Grant us patience to listen to one another, the wisdom to make sound decisions, and the courage to act justly and righteously. We lift up the concerns of our cities, those who are struggling, those in need, and those seeking hope and direction. We ask for your protection over our citizens, our first responders, and all who serve to make San Marcos a safer and better place to live. May your peace flow through our streets, homes, and hearts. Pray a special prayer for Lori as she enters into retirement. Bless her future, bless her family, and bless this meeting, Lord, that it may be productive and fruitful. Let every decision made be a reflection of your love, mercy, and justice. We entrust San Marcos to your care and pray that our actions today honor and glorify your holy name. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
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 Next is pledges of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Next is our citizen comment timeframe. City Council will hear citizen comments at work sessions, workshops, and regular meetings. Those wishing to speak must sign up. There is a deadline, and you can find that online, or you can sign up at the city clerk's office. Again, must be by the deadline. If you request to speak online, a call-in number and link to Zoom will be provided. Speakers may speak once during the citizen comment time period and may not yield time to others. If you speak now about a public hearing topic on tonight's agenda, I ask that you not repeat exactly the same comments again during the public hearing on the same topic. You have 3 minutes to speak that start when you state your name. A timer is displayed on the screen and you start in the green. When the timer shows only yellow, you have less than 20 seconds left. When the timer is red, your time to speak is up and a bell will ring. The mayor and council will endeavor to ensure that meetings are conducted in a courteous manner and in an atmosphere free of defamation, intimidation, personal insults, profanity, or threats of violence. And something happened at the last meeting that's not happened in my 16 years, but up until now. There are some foul words used, and I was so surprised I had to stop and think, did that really just happen? So I will be more observant this time. And if you do any of those, you'll hear the gavel. I'll ask you to leave the council chambers. If you need help doing so, our officer will assist you. This is the warning, as opposed to warned once and you get to keep speaking. This is your warning. Drop any of those words again. Not anybody here did that. Drop those words again, and you will need to stop speaking at that time. Okay, I have a list here somewhere. Our speakers this evening, I'm going to call out several names so you can go ahead and be ready and line up. We have Benjamin Ruby, followed by Noah Brock, Annie Donovan, Sam Walker, and who's joining us remotely, and Megan Jones, who'll be joining us remotely. So if you would, be sure and state your name so we have that for the record, even though I'm calling you to the podium. And that's when your 3 minutes will spend. Benjamin Ruby? Oh, and you may adjust the microphone to wherever you need it.
Sure. Can y'all hear me? Good evening, council. My name is Benjamin Ruby, 10101 Reunion Place, San Antonio, Texas. I'm here to answer any questions you might have on item number 2. Thank you.
Noah Brock?
Good evening, Council. My name is Noah Brock, and I'm here to talk about the proposed right-of-way annexation in relation to the SMART terminal, known as the Axis Logistics Park. I want to read a section from the SMART terminal development agreement that I believe pertains to this new roadway alignment. This is section 6.04D, and it defines what constitutes a major change to the agreement, requiring a vote by City Council to approve. Included in this list is changes in roadway alignments more than what is necessary to meet code. I have inquired about this to city staff and the mayor and was told that since the exhibit in the development agreement was conceptual, this roadway alignment change did not constitute a major change. This really does not make a lot of sense. In the original alignment, there was an existing easement for roadway in Caldwell County on the other side of FM 1984. It lined up exactly with the end of Quail Run, which is the end point of this proposed road. Once the shift happened, the developer bought more property and requested that Caldwell County move that roadway easement over. This new land and new future roadway alignment on the other side of FM 1984 will now be outside of the development agreement and right next to existing residences. This really points to the developer wanting to move this road to acquire more usable land for their project. I asked through public information requests for documentation on how the decision was made to move the road, but I have not received anything that discusses moving the road. I've only received plans that show the original roadway alignment and then magically the changed new roadway alignment. No discussion about it. Is there information being withheld here? It seems like that from my perspective. Scarborough Lane and Franklin Mountain removed their annexation request 1 year ago. They are now trying to avoid city council oversight on the project by strategically making changes and hoping that no one will notice, hoping that you won't notice. City council is the entity that negotiated this development agreement, and city council members are the ones that need to maintain oversight on this project. The notification range for annexation is 400 feet. This roadway alignment shifted the end of that road by 750 feet. What city or state code required or requirement made this change happen? What was required to make that road change? Do you think this roadway alignment constitutes a major change? Please look at that map. Please inquire about this. Please ask yourselves, what does this roadway annexation do for the city of San Marcos? It's a simple answer. Nothing. Vote no. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Annie Donovan.
Good evening, Council. My name is Annie Donovan, and I'm here to remind you that the community does not want the Axis Logistics Park, formerly known as Smart Terminal. 1 year ago, Scarborough Lane Development and their subsidiary company, Franklin Mountain San Marcos, withdrew their request to annex 589 acres of land, stating they were not interested in annexing at the time. Here we are again with another annexation request from Scarborough Lane Development, albeit for a much smaller amount of land. And I want to add that today, you have an agenda item regarding this. I believe it's item number 2. They have delayed this 3 times, so it's finally here. Anyway, so if you look at the map that was provided to you by NOAA, based off of their new roadway alignment, it gives the appearance that their next step may be to displace the residents that have lived in the area for ages. What else would putting a 120-foot wide road right in front of homes and a business mean? I know it's not in your backyard, but there are families that have lived right there for 30 or more years. What is the benefit to the city of San Marcos taxpayers in annexing a little over 7 acres of land? The road's only purpose is to serve as a spine road for heavy industrial development and the truckloads of 18-wheelers the developer wants to bring in. If annexed, once the road is built out, will taxpayers be fronting the bill for maintenance? The damage from one fully loaded 18-wheeler driving down the road is equivalent to the damage of 9,600 cars driving on one road. That road will need a lot of maintenance. There is no benefit for the city to annex a road that the majority of taxpayers of San Marcos won't be using. I ask that you vote no on AN 24-03 when the time comes. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sam Walker, and I believe Sam Walker
Yes, ma'am.
is
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go right ahead.
Mayor, Council, good evening. My name's Sam Walker with Ackerman Engineering. Here tonight to answer any questions y'all might have on agenda item 9. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker joining us online is Megan Jones.
Hi, good evening. Can y'all hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Great. This is Megan McCoy Jones. I am also just here. We have an agenda item important to y'all on the consent agenda, item 9 that Sam just referenced. And so we would just want to be available if you have questions and if that item were to get pulled. And then also, since I have a minute, I also want to thank Ms. Moyer for her awesome career with the city. So Laurie, thank you so much. We're a grateful community to have had your service for so long, and congratulations on your retirement. It's so well deserved.
Thank you. Our next speakers in this order will be Jen Williams, Shanta Miller, Wayne Miller, Maxfield Baker. Jen Williams. They're not on? Yeah, okay. I'll circle back. Shanta Miller? Or Wayne Miller? Ah.
Good evening. I'm Wayne Miller. Perhaps I'm a broken record. I've been here. I will continue to come until I am satisfied. I wasn't here when you did it, but I'm pretty sure that everyone stood up with their hearts over their hands over their heart and said, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and for the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There is no liberty. There's no justice. There's no justice when a person can be killed by a policeman, and that policeman has 2 days to get his lies straight. And then all the documents concerning that shooting is held in secret. That's not liberty. That's not freedom. That's not justice. Indivisible, meaning, are you with me, sir? Yoo-hoo! Yes, sir, you. Okay. If you won't hear me, you won't feel me. And if you won't feel me, then you won't represent me. You won't represent my thoughts. You won't represent my heart. This may mean nothing to you, but it was my grandson that died. So if you're doing that, sleep on, as Jesus told his disciples, sleep on. Go ahead. Indivisible, it means that we can't not be broken. We can't be separated, but we're separated. We got the police over here. We got the council over here. We got all of these different people, and they're in different places with different agendas. We need, if we want to represent that, and I went to the United States Army to protect that. I gave my heart, my love, my life for this cause, and this cause is deserting me. This cause is deserting me. And I'm going to tell you one other thing, this cause is deserting you. Stand up and do what needs to be done. Enact guidelines that will free this up so that we don't go around feeling the way we do. My grandson's name has been destroyed by lies. Have a good evening.
Maxfield Baker will be next. Following him in this order is Yancy Arvalo, Jordan Oliver, and Eric Martinez.
Howdy, y'all. I'm Maxfield Baker, and I'm going to just kind of shotgun stuff at you as I normally do. First and foremost, the next Civics Club meeting, we've been meeting at Tantra the fourth Mondays of the month, will be on July 22nd. At our last meeting, we talked about the upcoming elections, putting together a candidate questionnaire. We also talked about putting together a reasons not to vote rally. Many of those reasons are reflective of the very inactions that you all have chosen to take regarding recent events. A ceasefire, justice for Malachi, actually listening to the hard work of the petitioners that have gone out to get signatures and rallied our community, getting nearly the amount of signatures that have elected some of you, right, by those margins. It's not lost on me that, there are elections that are won by a few votes, right? So it's not lost on me that you all have the power, right? I know what powers you have. Some of you don't know the powers you have. And in fact, when I was working shoulder to shoulder with you, it was astonishing how many of you just felt so weak. I was talking to somebody about police issues because folks still come to me with concerns and stuff. And they were talking about how, and this is a member of the Chief Advisory Panel, by the way, they were saying, if they would just give the cops what they want and what they need, then we could get our community to be more safe and things like that. And they consider themselves to be a more liberal person. And I said, who's stopping them? They have the most friendly cop council that we've had in a long, long time. Many of you are going to make a decision on whether to put the ballot initiative on the ballot. And I understand there might be some questions and concerns about whether that actually happens. It'd be great when you all go to have that discussion if you sign the recusal forms, because many of you have received donations from police officers. And, according to Mark Gleason's ethics case, it is inappropriate for you to vote on issues that benefit cops if you have financially benefited from them from your campaigns. Matthew Mendoza, Mayor Houston, Shane Scott, Jude Prather. You all have received those kinds of endorsements. And when communities feel unheard, they pull their hair out. They give up. They decide they don't want to vote. And it seems like maybe that's your intention by continuing to sidebar those folks and keep them out of the discussion, is to keep our voter turnout low so that it can support the kind of endeavors and issues that you've been pushing for. Because that's what we see, right? The dream sessions are not enough. I asked early on that the dream sessions maybe have one about critical incidents, and we haven't seen that happen. You all, I see you pray at the beginning of every meeting. Where is a Muslim organizer or community member that could come and give a prayer in their language and their faith? Maybe that would be an inroad for the folks seeking ceasefire resolutions.
Point of correction, Mayor.
No,
You could.
we don't respond to citizen comment. You can respond in other
You can
ways later.
on information, you can. You can.
We don't.
Okay, I won't.
I suggest that you address that another way. Yancy Arevalo, to be followed by Jordan Oliver and Eric Martinez.
Good evening. My name is Yancy Arevalo. As you know, I've been coming here for the last couple sessions. I hope you enjoyed your break while thousands of Palestinians die. I don't know what else to say to get y'all to bring up this ceasefire resolution for discussion. Jane Houston, Shane Scott, Jude Prather. What are you trying to hide? At this point, I think, are you for genocide? I don't know, because I haven't heard what y'all want to say since we haven't brought it up for discussion. I'm going to assume that you are for genocide. And that's what I'm going to be telling everyone else. Whoever's running up for council again, it's going to tell them, don't vote for you because, they're pro-genocide. And, we'll see what they have to say, but Jane Houston, I think you showing up to the Juneteenth celebration is very, very hypocritical. How can you show up to an event that celebrates the Black community and Black life and Black people when you have the Malachi Williams family coming up here, asking y'all to meet their demands, and, it seems like y'all don't give a shit. So, yeah, I said it.
Then your time to speak is over. If you would please go into the lobby.
All right, no problem.
Now.
Okay.
Our next person is Jordan Oliver.
Hello, I'm Jordan Oliver. I was going to make an impassioned speech, but I have come to realize that the words said at this podium don't change your minds. It was a hard thing to realize because I have been preaching to my friends that local government is the way to change things, that speaking at citizen comments are the way to change things, and yet here we are with no change. I will admit the optimism that I have had has taken quite a beating. I naively thought that the 3 minutes of impassioned words could change your minds. But clearly, That isn't the case, so instead I have a genuine question. Are y'all Zionists? It's a serious question, and I'm very curious. It is not a question of malice, though I will admit I have to try very hard to come at this from a place of kindness. I just want to know where you're at and where I am at. I ask this question as a way to open a discussion because that is genuinely what I want to have. I want to know why this council cannot say the words, "We support a ceasefire." Is it because of Greg Abbott's laws? Is it because of fear that certain Zionist groups will pull support? Or is it because you believe Israel has a right to colonize Palestinian land? I want to know. Speak to us. Have a discussion. So I would be very excited to talk with you. I know things got busy, but genuinely, I would be very excited to have a conversations with you. And I think a discussion with any of you would be wonderful. If not with me, then with anyone from San Marcos for Palestine. Because I genuinely believe that you are all kind people that want to do good. I have to believe that, or else there's no reason for any of us to come up here and speak to you. If you believe you are doing the best for the San Marcos community, then come and speak with us. I promise I'm in no position to judge, especially if you are coming from a genuinely good place. If you aren't willing to have a discussion on the floor, then please at least have a discussion with your voters. I would like to end with a Bible verse. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Proverbs 31:8. I pray this verse encourages you to do the right thing. I pray your hearts and minds are opened. And I pray that this council takes the necessary steps into doing what's right. May God bless you.
Our next speaker is Eric Martinez.
Howdy, Council. Eric Martinez. Here, I am newly here as the Executive Director of a new organization, a 501c4 organization called Mono Mia Action. More on that later. So this is about the 143 Civil Service Removal Campaign, right? And a matter of interpretation, right? Basically, the city is interpreting that the signature threshold was not met by the community. Basically, the city's interpretation is that while 10% of signatures from voters in the most recent municipal election is needed to adopt 143, instead, you are saying that a much larger threshold, 10% of qualified voters, is required to repeal it, to put the question before voters, right? So 800 votes plus to adopt, 4,000 plus signatures to repeal. And so basically you're saying it's easier to adopt 143 and protect officers who violate laws, but more difficult to remove 143 to bring transparency to our police, who are among the most well-paid and powerful municipal employees. So, you know, the city's requirement of the 4,500 plus signatures to be confirmed by the August 5th deadline, the city waited to the last possible moment to inform us of that, right? We'll be looking into our legal options for this and future initiatives. The city's political maneuvering is nothing new. Even if we were to challenge it in court, any court ruling would likely be handed down after that August 5th deadline. But no matter the outcome, starting this fall, we will begin collecting the 4,500 plus required signatures for the 143 civil service removal for SMPD only, in addition to other measures for a May 2025 election. And through this, we'll be launching our membership to the general public for our organization's first time in our history, 8 years or so, right? So that will be new and exciting, and we'll be building power in a new way, never before seen, community by community, neighborhood by neighborhood. right? But police accountability, police transparency, police brutality may not be of great concern to you. So maybe I'll speak on another issue, right? Of the significant disparity in how our city compensates police staff compared to other city workers, right? But
And your time is up.
you have a great one.
Ms. Reyes.
Mayor and council, I'm providing this update this evening to you, council, but also for the family of Malachi Williams and our community. Last week, Assistant City Manager Rodney Gonzalez sent council an email with the following updated facts as we currently understand them. Video material is available for the family of Malachi Williams to view alongside their attorney of record through the Hays County District Attorney. It is our understanding that neither the family nor the attorney of record has contacted the district attorney's office to view the material. The DA's office continues to wait to be contacted to discuss the scope of material available to be viewed. We recognize there is a desire for information on this critical incident to be released to the public. As such, I asked Chief Standridge to work with our communications team and Chiefs Advisory Panel to develop a San Marcos Police Department crisis communication policy. The goal of such policy is to provide consistency on how these types of incidents will be handled in the future and to foster clear expectations to the public for when such information would become available. The policy is currently undergoing final review. As part of the review, Kelly Higgins, the Hays County District Attorney, sent Chief Standridge a letter at the end of May, which ACM Gonzalez shared with council via email. In his letter, Mr. Higgins requested that Chief Standridge take the District Attorney's Office concerns into consideration when finalizing the language for the crisis communications policy. Mr. Higgins expressed concerns regarding a public release of any video of the shooting while the investigation is ongoing. Mr. Higgins specifically requested that the city withhold any video from an officer-involved shooting until after a grand jury has been able to review the matter. And Mr. Higgins acknowledged that the family of a person killed in an officer-involved shooting needs answers about what happened to their loved one. Mr. Higgins acknowledged that state code authorizes a prosecutor to permit a family member of a person that was killed to view the video evidence. Mr. Higgins wrote that his office will be open to discussions about allowing that to occur in most circumstances. To summarize the status request to view video material, the Hays County District Attorney's Office continues to wait to be contacted by the Miller family or their attorney. Regarding the Police Department's crisis communications policy, the paramount task is upholding community transparency without compromising investigative procedures. Chief Standridge is finalizing the language for the policy, which takes into account balancing this for consideration. We acknowledge our community's concerns regarding this heartbreaking tragedy and the grief that Malachi Williams' family has expressed. It has been emotional for all of us as well. We sincerely appreciate the opportunity to provide this update.
May I object to part of what was read?
Mayor, we've had citizen comment. That's a response to some of the citizen comments made. We're not really agendized, but it's up to the council.
I would like to hear that.
Can you say it in a few sentences and come to the microphone?
Yes. Everything that has been offered to us, as I stated the last time I was here, has very little meaning to it. It's nothing we're going to glean from that. So the offer has been made not to help us to get through this. So I object to him saying that we've had a fair offer. There has been an offer made, but it's not fair. So I would like also a copy of that manuscript so I can read it at my leisure and understand it a little bit clearer. But at this point, my understanding is, and I state my objection. So can I get a copy of that?
Yeah.
And when will I be able to get that? Thank you, I appreciate it.
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Garza.
When
And Ms. Garza,
Mrs.
just
Hold on.
real quickly,
Hold
just
on.
as a member, we can, in response to citizen comments, we can provide factual information and whatnot, which is what Mrs. Reyes did, but we're not agendized to have a discussion about any of this, so I just want to make
So,
sure if it's just factual
right.
information, we're fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's appropriate, if not, if you could provide another avenue to have this question answered. When I heard City Manager Reyes say that the video footage was offered to the family to be viewed, did that offer include the whole video? And did it include and address the demands that the family has reiterated multiple times, which is to see the body camera footage of all the responding officers?
Ms. Garza is asking for some explanation on what you stated. If someone else can answer that, that would be fine.
Chief Standers would have more of that information than I do.
Stan Standers, Police Chief. After consultation with the district attorney, it was decided that we would in fact enable unredacted access to the officers' body-worn cameras, inclusive of the original contact with the 2 victims of the aggravated assault. That it was in fact offered. As it relates to being it inclusive of the store's videos, it's my understanding that the district attorney has not agreed to release that. The district attorney and I have also agreed to provide review of still photos. The still photos depict what we perceive as evidence. So, unredacted video access and still photos. It's my understanding the district attorney has not agreed to watching the video associated with the store.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate your information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, that's not a topic that we can discuss right here, right now. I'll leave it to others to address that in a different avenue.
What are my recourses? Who else? You tell me.
Those questions, yes, sir, just because of the Open Meetings Act, those
Yeah.
are the kinds of things that can be addressed by speaking with the chief or the district attorney's office.
I've spoken with the chief.
Right, but the council is not in a position to specifically,
Yeah.
those are things that the chief and district attorney's office would have the information on. We're not posted to go any further than that, sir, without.
Okay, so this is what I, citizen, see. This is what I, Wayne Miller, see. This is what I see. I see more ways of hiding the truth. And the question is, if Malachi did what they said he did, it's going to be there. So why not show me what happened in the store? Why?
Sir, that's not up to us to say. That's, as I understand it, the district attorney, and that conversation would need to be had with him.
Okay, so I am going to say this right now. I would like a recall on the district attorney.
Sir, that's not under our scope of authority.
I know.
So, thank you. Okay. Council, we will roll on to consent agenda. We have 21 items on our consent agenda this evening. Those are items that may all be acted upon by one motion by the council. Unless we ask to pull something, I'm asking that we pull item 2. Is there anything else anyone wants to pull? If not, I would accept a motion for approval of items 1 and 3 through 21 to address now.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Scott, seconded by Mr. Gonzalez. And Ms. Trevino, let's vote.
Mr. Prather.
Aye, with the abstain on 21.
Thank you. Mr. Scott.
Aye.
Ms. Garza.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Houston.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Gleason.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Mendoza.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes 7-0.
All right, and as our usual practice, we will do our public hearings next, and then we will go back to the items that are pulled from the consent agenda. So we will be at item 22. Ms. Trevino.
Receive a staff presentation, hold a public hearing to receive comments for or against Resolution 2024-125R, providing no objection to the submission of an application for low-income housing tax credits to the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs for the proposed This Springs multifamily housing project located east of the intersection of Interstate Highway 35 and Ocarina Springs Drive and between Ocarina Springs Drive and Davis Lane, approving findings related to the application, imposing conditions for such non-objection, authorize city manager or designee to execute said agreement and to submit the execute documents related to the application, authorizing city manager or designee to execute an agreement providing for the owner of the project to make payments to the city in lieu of property taxes and declare an effective date, and consider approval of Resolution 2024-125R.
Presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Amanda Hernandez, Director of Planning and Development Services. The subject property has frontage on Davis Lane and Ocarina Springs Drive, and it's east of Interstate 35. The applicant is proposing a low-income housing tax credit project, which in partnering with the San Marcos Housing Authority would be tax exempt. If City Council chooses to approve this request, we will also seek direction on which payment in lieu of taxes option you would prefer. Option 1 is an upfront payment of $250,000 with 15 annual payments of $20,000 for a total of $550,000. Option 2 is a one-time payment of $400,000. And as we discussed at a prior meeting, staff would recommend the one-time upfront payment. Next slide. This slide indicates the site plan and the unit mix. All units will serve those making 60% or less of the area median income, or AMI, and the units will be 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. Next slide. The property is zoned multifamily 24 and general commercial. Next slide. There we go. All right. In April of 2023, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved a conditional use permit for the apartment use in the commercial zoning district, so no zoning change will be required. The property is located in a high-intensity zone on the preferred scenario map, and the high-intensity zones are actually established to accommodate higher densities and a mix of uses. So this is the type of development that we would have been looking for in those high-intensity zones. Next slide. The property is currently located within the FEMA floodplain. However, the applicant is working through the FEMA process to remove the property from the floodplain. There was a question on the message board about the 2015 floods, and this area did have flooding. However, our records indicate that the multifamily buildings, or at least most of them in the area, were only affected, meaning that the units were still habitable after the event. Next slide. The affordable housing policy criteria considers distance to services, and this map shows the property is located within half a mile of all recommended services, which includes medical, schools, and grocery. It's actually rare that we have a property that meets all of these criteria. Most of the properties have 1 or 2 of the services available, but this is a unique location that has all of those services within close proximity. Next slide. The next few slides will detail the criteria in the affordable housing policy, which states the project must meet 5 of 8 criteria, including criteria 1 if tax exemptions are proposed. And criteria 1, specifically for development seeking local tax exemptions, and the project is actually not meeting this criteria, number 1, because they're not providing enough 3-bedroom units. The requirement is for 35% of the total number of units to be 3-bedroom units. And that was added to the policy a few years ago to ensure that there are enough units which are large enough for families. The applicant indicates that the project was designed as a market rate project, and while they made some modifications, they were not able to achieve the 35% requirement and are at 14% 3-bedroom units. Next slide. Criteria 2, 3, 5, and 6 are considered met because the development is providing affordable housing units in a preferred area on the comprehensive plan. The development is adjacent to an existing bus route, which has also been a rarity for some of our projects. They've had to provide shuttle service, but this one is on an existing bus route, and it's near the identified services that we discussed. The development is not meeting the criteria for being in the appropriate zoning district. It is in a legacy district, and it is not a redevelopment project. Next slide. This is criteria 8, which deals with the services which will be provided on site. The applicant achieved 33 points, which well exceeds the 18-point minimum required by TDHCA, the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. These services will be memorialized in their agreement with the state, and it will be provided to the city at a later date. Next slide. The affordable housing policy provides additional criteria to help support or not support these types of developments. This development is within the floodplain, which is something we must consider. However, they are going through the process to modify that floodplain map, and we do have adequate fire service in the area. The applicant estimated approximately $3 million in tax revenue would be lost due to the project's partnership with the Housing Authority, and the applicant is proposing those 2 payment in lieu of tax options. Since this is not a senior housing development, and since the Strategic Housing Action Plan has not been adopted, the remaining criteria do not apply. Next slide. This slide lists the services which will be provided. It's also detailed in your packet, and the scoring matrix was provided. The applicant is exceeding the minimum amenities score by 15 points and exceeding the residential support services score by 1 point. Next slide. City Council has seen this slide in the past, which lists the additional language provided in the resolution of no objection. This resolution, unlike many others, only needs the twice the state average per capita language, which is that language that acknowledges that the city as a whole has a lot of these low-income housing tax credit developments. Next slide. The Workforce Housing Committee discussed this item, and they did not make a formal recommendation. However, they directed staff to place the item on a City Council agenda. Staff's recommendation is based on the criteria in the affordable housing policy. So even though the development is meeting 5 of the 8 criteria, since criteria 1 is not being met, staff is unable to offer a positive recommendation on this item. And so for that reason, staff is recommending denial of this request as presented, and that concludes my presentation.
Okay. I will now open the public hearing and ask, Mr. Trevino, I believe we didn't have anyone sign up in advance. Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak for, against, or about this project? If you would, state your name and your address, and the next 3 minutes are yours.
Perfect. Hi, Council. Laura DuPont, 1024 West San Antonio Street here in San Marcos. I'm on the Streamline Development team, and I've been here before, but we're really excited about this project for all the reasons that Ms. Hernandez outlined. It is rare that you find this kind of location with any multifamily, and so the opportunities that it provides to the residents, future residents, we think make it a great project. I'm here if you have any questions at all, and I really appreciate your consideration tonight.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak for, against, or about this project? If not, I will close the public hearing, and I will
Motion to
entertain
approve.
a motion. Is that to approve?
Approve.
I'll second that.
Oops, hold on. Okay, so it's now on the table for discussion, and I just printed a couple of things I need for reference. I'm gonna step right behind that door and get them.
There's a couple.
Concerns, questions?
No one really questioned. One thing that caught me about this is very similar to the other one that we passed not too long ago. This one really fills the gap for single parents, more so than the other one did. So that's one big push for me to go ahead and approve this, because we do not have, and I was a single parent for a while. So I think we have a location for this, and all the criteria is met as far as location, all the amenities, fire safety. I mean, y'all heard it, so y'all know. So that's my reason for approval.
I have a question. I'm not sure if it's for Ms. Hernandez or for Mr. Aguirre. Since this project does not meet our criteria, is there something special that we need in the motion to approve?
No, ma'am, I don't believe so, because we worded the resolution that's in your packet, so you're making a motion on the resolution in your packet. which is highlighted. I'm on page 925 of the packet that says the city acknowledges the applicant has not demonstrated that the project meets the following criteria. We listed that criteria, so we're acknowledging that even though it does not meet that criteria, it's meeting the other criteria which are listed above, and I believe that your motion to approve would include that.
And you've got some information, yellow highlighted here, so.
Yes, ma'am, we would take that yellow highlighting off if city council approves the request as presented.
I noticed that. I just want to make sure we do this by the book, so we don't, so it doesn't come back as a, oh, we needed to do something differently. Mr. Gary?
And also this, it's a resolution, and the policy is by resolution. They're
Right.
of equal dignity, so yes,
Right.
you can still take action.
Okay. I knew we could take action. I just wanted to make sure that we dotted all the i's and crossed all the t's so that it didn't end up being an issue at a future time. Mr. Prather?
Yeah, housing affordability is a concern that we hear frequently, from our citizens, and frankly, it's a concern throughout the country. And two of the most proven ways to address housing affordability is increase supply and subsidizing housing, and this does both of those. I think it's been a great partnership between this and the Housing Authority and providing affordable housing for our citizens. So I think this is a good project. I know, in the metrics there's some things that say, not met. The thing about the 3 bedrooms, there's only 14% of them, or 42 would be a 3-bedroom. I can see market trends, the 1-2 bedroom is probably the more popular option for builders and for also for residents.
Well, we also had the letter from the Housing Authority.
Yeah, and the letter of support from the Housing Authority is another big thing. But like I said, the 2 ways to address housing affordability is increase housing supply and subsidize housing, and this does
Yeah.
both of those.
Well, it wasn't just in support. She was explaining the 2-bedroom and the need for the 2-bedroom.
And then it goes into detail about, I forgot the percentage of people that have been applying for the 3
Right.
bedrooms. There's a significantly
The
less
1- and
amount.
2-bedroom units, the wait lists are at 200. The wait list for 3 bedrooms is 54, so it's much less. And so she's provided us some information that we didn't have, and I think somebody just said things change over time. So there's that. Anyone else? I've got some concerns to inquire about, so I may need your help. No, go ahead.
I was just going to point out what you had said about the update about the need for single-family assistance, or this home for single families, single parents. So I appreciate my colleagues bringing that up. That was one thing that was weighing heavy on me for this vote. So thank you guys for bringing that up. I appreciate it.
Mr. Gonzalez, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mayor. To make sure I understand this correctly, there was 3 bedrooms for the whole entire complex, talking about 3 bedroom, 14 units for that?
14% of the total units.
Okay.
So they have 42, and I think we would have required 107. So they're at about half of what we would have asked them for in that policy.
And other low-income apartments, how many units traditionally do they have? 2 in 1?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I know that the most recent that was in this similar situation did provide the 35%. But we have only had that in our policy for a couple of years, and maybe 4 projects have come in under that new policy.
There's at least 4 that have met that criteria because we didn't have this conversation about them. 'cause they
Unless
had
they're
met.
senior housing. Senior housing
Right.
does not have to meet the 3-bedroom. So some of them were senior, it didn't apply. So I don't have the
Correct.
exact number, but it didn't apply to everybody, and the ones that we've seen so far have met that criteria.
Yeah, that's one thing I liked about this case, that it had 3 bedrooms, and that's something that San Marcos really needs. And the 2 and the 1 bedroom, of course. Affordable housing, I don't see that coming our way for a long time. I think it's going to be apartments for them to get started and save enough money to be able to buy a home. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, I've got some questions because we have a number of these. And so I have seen what other complexes are offering. And there may be, because of the good location, perhaps we're not doing as much as we did before. So one of the questions that I have, and I was finding a disconnect on some of the documents that were in here. And some, it looked like everything was there, and others it didn't. But I've got, what I needed to print was the document that y'all provided. And so one of my questions, if Ms. DuPont or someone else from that group can come forward, one of the things that we've had before that we don't have here is the, I'm going to say a shuttle of some type that would take folks to different grocery stores, different large box stores that provide a number of goods and services. I don't see the shuttle here. Is that because y'all are presuming our bus route is going to handle it and that some of it can be done by walking?
Yes, Mayor. So typically that's a requirement for TDHCA if you're not on a transportation line, because that's something
Yes.
that they look at, because that is a necessity for
Right.
everyone. So typically if you're not on a bus route, which Ms. Hernandez said, most of these developments are kind of out on the outskirts, and our
Exactly.
bus system hasn't quite caught up with them. So we are on a line of transportation that's already established. So that's why we're not offering the shuttle.
Okay, I was assuming that, but since I think all the rest of them are, because they need to,
Right.
I just wanted to make sure that we had clarity on that. I'm assuming that everything, every one of these has a washer and dryer, and that's why there's no laundromat on site?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then I noticed some of them have food pantries, not a requirement. I didn't find under, I'm on page 937, I'm gonna go back. I was looking at the educational services, and I wasn't finding that was provided when I'm looking at the list that says common amenities, 18 points, and the things that are required by TDHCA. I've found nothing in the community space for resident support services, multifunctional learning and care centers wasn't marked, but yet when I look at your document with the very small print, which is why I had to print it, I see that you have a significant information that you've got. We'll include a minimum homework assignments, tutoring, test preparation, assessment of skill deficiencies, et cetera. You have a lot in your document, but I don't see it in the check boxes, and I saw the check boxes first, and when I looked at that, I'm going, what's going on here? I'm on page 936 of the packet. And so the same thing with a bit under the safety. I didn't see as many under the health and fitness. The landscaping was less concerned to me. I saw that there wasn't a community laundry room, so I assumed that was washer and dryer in each one.
Yeah.
And then under resident support services, there wasn't much checked under there either, as we've seen with others. And so that was concerning to me. So give me some information to make me feel more comfortable with this, please.
Sure. So TDHCA's requirements are that if you were in a district with underperforming schools, that you do put in the 15 hours a week tutoring program. It's monitored by TDHCA. We plan to partner with a local entity to provide those services. But because we are in a district that is underperforming, you don't get to check that box on the resident services, which I think it's because it's a requirement. So we're excited to provide that service, and we're happy to do that. I'm a public school mother, and so I have a heart for that, but they do not allow us to check that on that box and receive those points because it is considered not something that we're offering, but a requirement.
I get it.
Yeah.
But you can see why I was concerned when I saw zeros on that going, wait a minute, they're not going to do that, and most do. So that's what I needed, was the explanation on that one. Let's see. That was the main thing that I was concerned about. I'm a little concerned that you're not offering space for recycling, but that's a worry for another day.
Okay.
All right. And Ms. Garza, your turn.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, my questions are very similar to yours. I wrote down, like I flagged 8A and 8B. I guess this, I don't know, whoever wants to answer this. I'm curious as to like what mechanisms exist to assess like equitable access to the amenities and like the different programmings that like once developments are built. So like recently and in the past, I've received some concerns and comments from our neighbors that like, yeah, it looked real nice on paper, but there's like very heavily, and some folks even say racially motivated restrictions regarding access to the pool or the barbecue pits or whatever. So like what mechanisms exist, I guess, on both ends to ensure that all these awesome things are actually executed in like an equitable way? Like whose responsibility is that, I guess?
So we partner with a company called Asset Living, and what they specialize in is they specialize in LIHTC projects throughout the United States. What they provide through their services are they have staff that do the TDHCA monitoring for us. We have a very strict compliance that we have to follow. And we have at least an annual on-site, but we have monthly reporting. And some of the things that they'll do is for resident services is we have sign-up lists, and they will review those lists. And if there is a program that they feel is not being taken advantage of by the residents, then we'll be required to do better advertising for those programs and make sure that we're getting the word out appropriately so that we can get participation in those programs. That's one example. But TDHCA does have some pretty stringent compliance policies that we work with, and that's why we work with Asset Living, because they specialize in those things.
And they monitor on a regular basis, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Ms. Garza?
Okay. So then is that why in 8B it said, or it's stated like additional information to be provided at a later stage in the development process? So the applicant has indicated that they intend to partner with local entities, however, no specific agreements have been established. Is that because that's handled through Asset Living?
Typically, you can work through Asset Living to do those things, but I will tell you locally, because this is my community and I work here and live here and have been involved here for so many years, I've started those discussions with both Community Action and the Hayes Caldwell Women's Center, and we have a lot of great ideas on how we can partner in programming. We will have office space on site. That any service provider is welcome to come and take advantage of. But again, Councilmember Garza, I feel like it's an advantage with this and with CenterPoint because you do have a local developer with relationships.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think that's good. Yeah, I was wondering like why haven't you all started talking about this, but I appreciate that you are narrowing your scope to like local folks and also engaging in those conversations yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm glad you're involved. Thank you. Okay, council, just as a reminder that this is the reason why we're going through the 1A through whatever it is because they are looking at an exemption from local taxes. So we just need to remember that. We need to remember that local property tax is a good bit of how we fund our parks and our libraries, our public service, our police and fire. So this is another project, and I'm sure you noticed that there's item 29 on our agenda where we're going to have a fuller discussion about that.
Mayor, may
guess that's
I
all I wanted to say on
interject
that.
really quick?
Jump in there.
I have a couple of things. I wanted to just address Councilmember Garza's comment on item 8B. I think we use the same language every single time, and I just wanted to clarify that the developer will tell us who they plan to work with. We're just sharing that we don't have those agreements, because at this point in the process, they're still working on those agreements, trying to nail those specifics down. So it's not unusual that we don't have those when you all are seeing it, because we're really just looking theoretically, is this a good location? Is this a good project? Is this something we want to continue to have them move forward with? And then I also wanted to just remind the council that we will need some direction on the pilot.
It's the next thing I've
Perfect.
got here, but thank you for making sure I didn't forget.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so council, as Ms. Hernandez correctly says, that in lieu of taxes, which is what pilot means, they are offering to make, give to the city. And the options are $250,000 to begin with, plus another $300,000, but it would be over 15 years for a total of $550,000, or $400,000 up front. And do we need a motion to amend, or can I just do a poll on this and then we will know?
I think it would be helpful to amend,
Okay.
so it's clear. Thank you.
Okay, then I will make a motion to amend to go with the 400,000
Second.
up front. You're seconding that? Thank you. Okay, so then, Ms. Trevino, let's go around the table on how we wish to accept the payment in lieu of taxes pilot.
Mr.
And my
Scott.
motion was for the 400 up front.
Is that a lump sum?
Yep.
Could I ask just
Sure.
why you'd rather go that route? It's going to help with my decision also.
Because sometimes, and I don't mean to disparage anyone, but sometimes 5 years down the road, things get lost, they get forgotten, they get whatever. And this is this decision that we made the last time we had this offer, so I just thought I'd go with that.
Okay.
If people have changed their mind, you can outvote me. As I tell people, I've been outvoted in public and on television more than once, so, you know, we just need to make a decision on this, whichever way we go. Ms. Hernandez?
I think Councilmember Scott was probably going to say what
Yeah,
I
I
was going
think
to say.
the thinking behind it is $400,000 today goes farther than $400,000 10 years from now. So if we use it right now, we can use it for our city, it's more beneficial than down the road.
It's true, if we're looking at inflation, 400,000
Yeah.
now, 550 later. But I just want to make sure that we get the amount that's going to be most helpful.
Thank you,
So,
guys.
and we thank you for the offer, because that doesn't always happen, so we appreciate that. Other questions? Ms. Garza? No? We're, okay, we're ready to vote then.
Mr. Scott.
Aye.
Ms. Garza.
This is just on like how the money would be accepted.
Whether we're going to do 400 one time or
Okay.
550 over 15
Okay.
years.
Okay, yeah, then the one time is what was on the table, right? Yes?
Yes,
What
ma'am.
you said?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Aye.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Gleason.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Mendoza.
Aye.
And Mr. Prather.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
Okay, so we have that amended to the original motion, which includes that we understand there's an exception and we are accepting of the exception. And unless there's any other concerns, questions, we're ready to vote.
Okay.
Wait, no, I do have a question, I'm sorry.
Yes,
For the
ma'am.
folks at home, like what does the city do with that money, right, for the folks at home? You know, because we're like, oh, we're gonna take this money, but like who decides where that's going? Whose piggy bank that goes to?
I'll direct that to Ms. Reyes, and then I'll come to you, Mr. Gleason.
It would go into the city's general fund, so it would go into the fund balance.
But presumably, it's going to go into
City operations.
services that we
Correct.
provide.
Correct.
Ms. Garza, did you have anything else?
I mean, perhaps this could be like for a work session or something, but I would be curious as to like exploring how we could more strategically handle situations like this so that we could take that money and put it towards efforts that intentionally are like aimed at the like unpacking or figuring out how to address the housing issue instead of it just going to like the general fund.
Okay.
We can do that in the future though.
Actually, we may have an opportunity, because you'll recall, item 29 tonight is to hold a discussion on low-income housing tax credits, including those of property tax exemptions and policies governing city council approval of projects. Mr. Gary, would how we do what we do with pilot dollars work under that?
Yes, Mayor, it would.
Okay, then we can discuss that tonight, Ms. Garza, and I've put that on the list.
Oh, yikes. I'm not prepared to have that discussion, but I mean, whatever. Okay,
We can
let's
kick,
go.
we can kick
We
it
can move
off.
on.
Well, we're not going to conclude anything tonight because it's just a discussion, but we'll get things out on the table that we want to have conclusion on later. Mr. Gleason.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm going to be in support of this, but I'm really glad that we're going to have some deep discussions about what these exemptions really mean with all these Light C projects. I have some real concerns about the volume of them that we're seeing, and that I just remind my colleagues and the community that pay attention to those discussions, because it's going to have some real world impacts on our services and potentially budgetary concerns over the next couple decades, right? So I'm going to be in support of it, but partially because we're going to be having these thorough discussions on the rest of these Light C projects and what they really mean.
Yeah, and we'll have that discussion under item 29 in a bit.
Mayor, on Mrs. Garcia's thing, are we talking about that yet?
Ms. Garza, no, we're going to talk about under 29 if you're talking about where the money goes.
Okay.
Yeah, under 29 when we have a fuller discussion on the
Okay.
Light C projects.
Okay.
Now we'll vote.
Okay. Ms. Garza.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Houston.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Gleason.
Aye, and then I also want to say that it helped with the presentation tonight, and for the applicant to have someone there to explain some of my concerns away, is that my initial concerns were potentially saying no. So that was very helpful tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Mendoza.
Aye.
And Mr. Prather.
Aye.
And Mr. Scott.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Yes, that was very helpful because I had some real concerns when I first started reading the packet. So your document that I finally found and in the packet, and very helpful. Thank you. I believe we had concluded item 22, and we will move on to item 23.
Receive a staff presentation, hold a public
Oh.
hearing.
Hold on. Does anybody want to take a break before we start the rest of this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We're going to take a break. It's 7:12. Please be back at 7:20.
Okay.
And we have found my ballot from our recess at 7:23. We are now on item 23. Ms. Trevino.
Receive a staff presentation, hold a public hearing to receive comments for or against ordinance 2024-26, amending the project plan and reinvestment zone financing plan for tax increment reinvestment zone number 4, Kissing Tree, to increase reimbursements to the developer by $16 million and to add eligible project costs for completing the Center Point Road 4-lane extension, changing the water storage tank to an elevated storage tank, and upgrading a water line, providing authorization to consummate the transactions contemplated by this agreement, including procedural provisions, and declare an effective date, and consider approval of ordinance 2024-26 on the second of 2 readings.
Presentation.
Ismael Garcia, Assistant Director of Finance. This is an ordinance, second reading of 2 readings, same presentation that you've heard from our Director of Finance. Wanted to see if there was any questions related to the item. The developer is also available if there's any specific questions, project-specific questions to the item.
All right. Thank you. So I will open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone who wishes to speak for, against, or about. I believe there was no one signed up, correct? So if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak for, against, or about, as I've told people before, if the people in favor of it don't want to get up and say something, why should I vote for it?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. My name is Jeff Howard. I'm here for the applicant. You had a public hearing on this on June 4th, and we appreciated the thoughtful questions and comments and appreciated the support last time. We're here to happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
And I need your address, please.
Oh, yes, ma'am. 4501 Freedom Drive, Austin, Texas.
All right, thank you very
Thank you.
much. Anyone else? Last chance? Okay, I will close the public hearing.
Motion to approve.
And we have a motion to approve from Mr. Scott, seconded from Mr. Mendoza. Questions? And let me see with our folks who are online. I'm not seeing any hands raised. So, Ms. Trevino, let's vote. Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Gleason.
Aye.
Mr. Mendoza.
Aye.
Mr. Prather.
Aye.
Mr. Scott.
Aye.
And Ms. Garza.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, that concludes our public hearing, so we will go back to item 2 that was pulled from the consent agenda.
Consider approval of resolution 2024-89R, approving an agreement for the provision of services in connection with the proposed owner requested annexation in case number AN-24-03, Axis Logistics, of approximately 7.553 acres of land inclusive of a portion of county right-of-way in Caldwell County, generally located on the western side of FM 1984, approximately 4,600 feet northeast of the intersection between State Highway 80 and FM 1984, authorizing the city manager or her designee to execute said agreement on behalf of the city, and setting a date for a public hearing concerning the proposed annexation of said tract of land and declare an effective date.
Okay, I await a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Gleason. You, Mr. Mendoza? Okay. There were some questions raised. I have raised some questions, and so Ms. Hernandez has accumulated these questions from the message board and other places, and she is ready to give us information.
Yes, I hope that I can answer all of those questions with my brief presentation. If we can go to the next slide, please. The subject property is part of a plat for a future roadway within the Access Smart Terminal Development Agreement, and per the agreement, the owner is requesting annexation to bring the road into city limits and construct the road to city standards. The road is shown conceptually on the city's thoroughfare plan, which is part of our transportation master plan. It can offer relief to SH 80 for traffic that's trying to get to FM 110 and ultimately I-35. This road is also shown conceptually on the concept plan that was approved as part of the development agreement. And this will actually be the main route for the truck traffic within the Access development. Once it's developed, there is a provision in that development agreement that says they have to have signage that directs the truck traffic to this road instead of sending them to State Highway 80. The final road alignment, as you're seeing on the screen today, is a result of engineering design, which includes engineers reviewing the cross-sections, looking at curve radiuses and things like that. And we do have an engineer here from our engineering department if you want more information on that. Staff worked with our legal department, and we determined that it was not, an amendment to the development agreement was not necessary, that the modified road alignment is not a major amendment, because in the development agreement, a major amendment is a roadway change that is more than what's necessary to meet code. So the final roadway alignment was considered a minor change to the concept plan, which is permitted in the development agreement. If the road crosses FM 1984 in the future, it would be constructed on land owned by this developer. And while it is behind some residential structures that are there, it might actually act as a buffer between the industrial uses which are proposed. In the alternative, the industrial uses could back up right to those homes. So we actually think that this might be a better alignment than it being up a little bit farther on the road. The city benefits from the annexation because the developer is actually going to pay for a transportation master plan roadway. If we needed that road in the future and the developer doesn't build it, then we would be responsible for that construction. I did mention, but I'll say again, that this road will offer an alternative for vehicles, and not just heavy truck traffic, but even those that live on 1984. If they want to get to I-35, they'll have another way to get to FM 110, ultimately to Interstate 35, without having to go to that intersection at State Highway 80. This road is part of the first phase of the Axis development, which includes the extension of utilities. So we're not only working on the road right now, we're actually looking at where the future water and wastewater lines may go, because those fall within the right-of-way. Right now, we are not zoning the road. It will be zoned as the properties adjacent are zoned. So the development agreement contemplates heavy industrial, but if that zoning changes, then this road would fall in suit with whatever the adjacent zoning is proposed. And I wanted to clarify one thing, that annexation does not require notification within a 400-foot radius. We follow the state law requirements for annexation, which is noticed in a public newspaper. And when the zoning comes for the adjacent property, then we would send the notices associated with the zoning. The annexation just goes hand in hand with that when we have a zoning change. But for now, we're leaving this FD, future development, so as not to assume what will be developed adjacent in the future. And that is, I believe, the answers to all of the questions, but if I miss something, I am here and happy to help. And that concludes my presentation. Oh, I do have another slide, I'm sorry. I probably should just address that really quick. Today, we are only voting on setting the public hearing and the service agreement, so you will see this 2 more times.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, council, my questions were answered. Thank you. That was thorough, as
Yes, ma'am.
always. Any questions? Any questions to those of us joining us online? Not seeing any. It appears that we are ready to vote. Mr. Trevino.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Gleason.
Aye.
Mr. Mendoza.
Aye.
Mr. Prather.
Aye.
Mr. Scott.
Aye.
And Ms. Garza.
Aye.
Mayor Houston.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
And now we are back to our agenda, which is, we're at item 24.
Consider approval of Resolution 2024-126R, approving an amendment to the reimbursement agreement with Karma Paseo Robles LLC for the San Marcos, Texas Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Number 4 that increases the reimbursement amount to the developer from $30 million to $46 million in connection with Kissing Tree Development at Hunter and Center Point Roads. Authorize city manager or her designee to execute the amendment on behalf of the city and declare an effective date.
Council, looking for a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Prather, seconded by?
I will second that.
Seconded by Mr. Mendoza. And questions, concerns? Those of us online, not seeing a hand raised, we're ready to vote. Mr. Trevino.
Mr. Gleason.
Aye.
Mr. Mendoza.
Aye.
Mr. Prather.
Aye.
Mr. Scott.
Aye.
Ms. Garza.
Aye.
Mayor Houston.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
On to 25.
Consider approval of Resolution 2024-127R, approving the award of construction contract to Geta Underground LLC for the Dunbar Water and Wastewater Improvements Project in the estimated amount of $6,285,310.72, authorizing city manager or her designee to execute the contract on behalf of the city and declare an effective date.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Scott, seconded by Mr. Mendoza. That was for approval. Questions?
Big numbers, big infrastructure. I'm sure these water lines in there are decades old. And this is part of investing in that infrastructure in our city.
Major improvements.
Well, full agreement. This is something that, it's infrastructure. It's extremely important. And this is one of those neighborhoods that it's about time we're getting back there where we need to be. So,
I mean, I can't even imagine how old some of those water lines are, but, we want to make sure that the water that we have go through our pipes, that we're not losing it, that we're accounting for every drop. So this is going to help with water lossage in our water pipes and everything else. So it's, like I said, $6 million, but this is the kind of investments you make in your city.
Okay. Mr. Mendoza?
aye.
Mr. Prather? Aye. Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Ms. Garza?
Aye.
Mayor Houston?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
And Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Item 26.
Consider approval of Resolution 2024-128R, approving agreement with Plummer Associates, Inc. to provide on-call professional services for the Sunset Acres subdivision drainage and associated improvements in the estimated amount of $3 million. Authorize city manager or her designee to execute the agreement on behalf of the city and declare an effective date.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Scott, seconded by Mr. Mendoza for approval. Mr. Prather, same song, second verse? All right.
Mayor, are we gonna fix Sunset Acres to the correct name?
This is right. It was the other one that was wrong
Oh, okay.
that we saw earlier.
Well, I'm definitely for this one.
I hope so. All right. Not seeing any further comments. Ms. Trevino?
Okay. Mr. Prather?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Ms. Garza?
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Houston?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Mendoza?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
On to item 27.
Consider approval of Resolution 2024-129R, approving a contract with WEX Bank for a fleet card management system managed with Enterprise Fleet Management for city vehicles in the annual amount of $1,389,551.60 for 1 year, with the possibility of 9 annual renewals. Authorize city manager or her designee to execute the agreement on behalf of the city and declare an effective date.
Looking for a motion?
Motion to approve?
Motion for Mr. Mendoza, seconded by
Second.
Mr. Prather. Questions?
Have one?
Go ahead.
No, exactly. What is this contract for? Is it for maintenance?
This is for, Pete Binion, Assistant Director of Public Works. This is for a fuel card management system. So it's going to provide us 300 cards that our staff can use at petrol stations to fill up on fuel.
It's gonna be 300.
Yeah, 300 cards for 300 vehicles. Yes, sir.
This is to keep up with this gas is for this vehicle and gets budgeted towards, it gets charged against this budget item, et cetera?
That is
Keeps
correct.
track of all that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I just was kind of confused since we just bought some vehicles fixing to buy some
Do
vehicles.
we have something like that already?
Hey, gotta provide them with fuel.
We do, right, over there by the, I thought we had something like that already.
We do, sir. This is a renewal because the contract is up.
Okay, it's the same one then.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's still WEX. It's going to give us a little bit of extra reporting for our leased vehicles through Enterprise. So it's a great deal for us.
Yeah.
I'm good.
All right, not seeing anything from those online. Ms. Trevino will vote.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Ms. Garza?
Aye.
Mayor Houston?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Mendoza?
Aye.
Mr. Prather?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Item 28.
Receive certification from the city clerk on the initiative petition for the repeal of Chapter 143 Police Officers Civil Service.
And I don't know who's
just
going to.
Right, this doesn't require any action, just
Right.
receiving information.
Everybody received the letter that I'm just about to read. So I, Elizabeth Trevino, City Clerk of the City of San Marcos, Texas, do hereby certify that the petition submitted onto my office on April 30, 2024 by Eric Martinez with Mano Amiga to repeal adoption of the Police Officer Civil Service Chapter 143 Texas Local Government Code is deemed invalid based on having insufficient number of signatures of qualified San Marcos voters.
Okay. It is what it is, and so we may move on now, Mr. Aguirre?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. Then we're on to item 29, something I referenced earlier this evening.
Okay.
Ms. Trevino.
Hold discussion regarding low-income housing tax credit projects, including those with property tax exemptions and policies governing city council approval of projects.
Okay, council, I put this on the agenda because, as we've noted before, and I've said several times, that when we have residences of any type and there's not tax dollars, property tax dollars coming in, we're not receiving the dollars that we would use to support our libraries, parks, and public service, public safety, police and fire, building inspections, all these things that we need done. And we need the housing. So I'm in a bit of a quandary, but I thought it was time that we just had a discussion about it. I'm not sure. There's also a few things in our policy that I think we might want to look at. For example, maybe the number of three-bedroom units required. So I'll come around the table. Mr. Scott's telling me he wants to speak, so I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to look at the difference between how many units you have and how many people in there multiplied by reference to how much taxes they spend on our sales tax, which probably is 4 or 5 times more than that property tax would be, I would imagine.
I would seriously doubt that.
I don't know.
I'd
be curious, yeah.
But here's the other thing. People who are living in structures that pay property tax are also paying sales tax. So regardless, we're still losing.
Yeah, we are. I'm
the
not
property
saying
tax.
there's still another side to it too, though. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I don't deny that there's sales tax, but I'm not sure how much sales tax there is coming in
That's what I'd like to kind of see.
for this. I don't know that we, any way to find out.
Just,
But I'm making a note of that.
okay.
But that's not a solution. Mr. Prather?
Yeah, definitely changing of the formula about the bedrooms to 3 bedrooms because the data from the housing authority is showing that
Right.
where the demand is.
I
And
think
then-
things have changed over
Yes,
time.
Yes, and then this fee, what does this call it, a fee in lieu of property taxes? And I saw this somewhere in the packet, for some reason I'm not finding it right now, but it showed like a $3 million property tax number over 15 years.
Well, no, that was the loss and property tax.
Correct.
Right. And so they're paying 400 one time
Versus 3 million over 15 years. And I was like, do we base a formula on that, like on an estimated 15-year property tax? You know, like, could we recoup in fee of, just so they know early on before they get down this path, what we would expect if they want to go ahead with that, you know.
Are you saying we should require a payment in in lieu of taxes?
I can see, so, you know, like, and I'm, you know, kind of torn between, I want to invest and subsidize affordable housing, and I think we're still be able to do that, while also not hindering future budgets, future councils by this loss of taxes. I think we just need to increase that formula where we could recoup some of that potential lost tax, and let that be known beforehand, so they have certainty and that kind of stuff, if they want to pursue one.
Well, these folks have offered it. We have not
Correct.
required it, so are you saying we should require?
Yes, I can see us requiring it,
Okay, and then we just kind of figure out what
like a formula.
formula based on,
Potential loss of taxes over 15 years. Like when I saw that number, 3 million in 15 years, I was like, okay, yeah, these are real numbers. But like I said, I also want to make sure we're doing what we can to invest and subsidize affordable housing and also putting more supply of housing
Yeah.
into our community. You know, both of
But-
those.
yeah. Here's my concern, and I'm not in any way suggesting that we violate any fair housing laws at all, but I don't know who's living in these units. I don't know if it's people from San Marcos, because now we've got more that have been on the San Marcos Housing Authority waiting list for a long time, or it's people moving from other cities going, hey, there's a cheap place to live in San Marcos. Granted, they still have to qualify. That's a huge concern.
And there's been a lot of people from Austin moving, you know, to Buda, Kyle, San Marcos. You know, there's been an outflow of folks being priced out of Austin, moving into our areas. So yes, there is.
That's my concern. If all these folks were already living here, it would be easier for me to,
Well, don't
to-
they have
to
a
do
time
this?
limit on that?
Could we have a residency requirement? Can we do that?
I don't
I think
know
they
that we
do.
can do, I don't know if we can do that, because we do have, like I said, I'm not suggesting we violate fair housing laws.
I'm going to tell you that I don't actually know Amanda Hernandez, Director of Planning and Development Services, but my guess is no, because these developments are subject to the state requirements because they have that application through the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. They have to meet the state standards. I can't imagine that there's you already live in the community requirement for the application. I think it's mostly income-based.
Long story short, Mayor, I am, amenable to making some changes so we can get ahead of this and, before we start getting more inundated with them, let's start kind of setting the bar where we want it, but also investing in affordable housing.
We're already behind. I don't think there's any way we will ever get ahead of it because they're not going to be paying the property tax. And the pilot's not going to come anywhere near that. So I don't think we will ever be able to get ahead of it. We're so far behind now. I don't know. Ms. Reyes, did you want to say something?
All I was gonna say is, I know, council likes to make data-driven decisions, and talking recently with our superintendent, they have a demographer who really looks to understand kind of what wraparound services are required when you have, the certain types of housing within the community. I wonder if it's worth having the demographer, come in and maybe look at the ratio of housing, because for a community to be viable and sustainable, I hear this council talk a lot about wanting to not gentrify neighborhoods and also have tax breaks. It makes it very difficult when you have a lot of pilot housing as well as ones that don't pay taxes, because what that means is that then the rest of the residents that do pay taxes are having to pay for whatever service requirements that you have for public safety, library, roads, all of those things. So you need a mix of both, and that's the thing, is you want to understand what is the community's capacity for this type of product versus the other types of housing that we need as a community to understand what that looks like. So just a thought that might be a way to just kind of get a little bit more facts so that it's not so anecdotal about, like, yes, in theory and in concept, you want affordable housing. We all want affordable housing, but what does that look like? What type of housing are we doing? And then what does that do for your existing tax base in terms of having all that type of housing within the community versus having a mix of housing? So just wanted to bring that up as a food for thought.
That was my question here. Is there any way for us to?
Wait.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Hang on a second, because I'm going to respond to that. The first ones that came in were paying taxes. And this has started with the last few, but now it seems to be a trend because everyone since the first one perhaps are not. And I know we need housing. And so if I didn't think we needed housing and this type of housing, I'd just vote no and try to convince y'all to vote no. I'm not going to do that because we need the housing. And this type of housing at this rate. And so I would be one to see, let's get more data and see what we can find. And I think we're all always for more data. So we will do that. And then actually, Mr. Gonzalez had his hand up before. And then I'll go to Mr. Mendoza, then I'll go to Mr. Gleason and Ms. Garza.
I forgot to raise my hand, my bad.
I have the same concerns, Mayor, similar to yours, is what's going to happen, and what it is happening is the taxes, the people that are paying taxes are going higher. They're going to have to start finding other places to live because they can't afford their homes. Therefore, I think we should put a moratorium on this for a little bit and brainstorm of what other ideas or what other cities are doing to help the lower income. I just don't think not paying any taxes is the answer for that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they're exempt, so it's not like we could agree to a deal with them at 70% or 50%. It's an exemption, so it's an all or nothing. And so there we get to none. Let me go to Mr. Mendoza next, and then I'll go to those of us online.
Thank you, Mayor. Earlier you gave us the waiting list numbers. Could you repeat those for us again earlier today?
Oh, those are from Ms. Wagner's letter.
Oh, okay.
And she said it was over 200 for, hold on. She was talking about the 1 and 2s versus the 3s. And I can separate these pages. We've carried a wait list for years, And our standing policy is we close them when they reach 200 requests. The 1 and 2 bedroom requests have remained at 200 for a very long time. The wait list for 3 bedroom is currently 54. And so that's why she was making the case for, it's okay
Sure.
to do fewer 3 bedrooms in this particular case. I've not been on the Workforce Housing Committee, but there's a reason why we came up with that 35%. But I think that was to make sure that we had enough for families, because a lot of the folks who were needing this type of housing were families at the time.
Completely understood.
So I believe that's why.
I guess my question would be is, and this is just, I don't know if it's thinking outside the box or just not understanding in detail what's, you know, the combination of working with each other here. I understand that it's tax exempt, it's like you said, all or nothing. But is there anything that we can include when somebody wants to come in and give us these particular complexes to say, okay, that's fine. Let's say, you know, out of 5 acres, 4.5 are going to be for this affordable housing, and 1 building is going to be separate. We're going to have this building set for regular housing, regular
Market
apartment
rate.
complexes. Yes, market rate. Is there any way we can include that to get something out of this?
Ms. Hernandez.
I know, and I'm sorry I have a lot of I don't know, but what I can respond to that is that the developers do a lot of number crunching, and in order to apply for TDHCA, they have to meet the threshold, the 60% threshold. If they have market units, then they end up having to build those almost separate, even if they're on the same property, and my guess is going to be that the numbers aren't going to pencil out for them, and the project wouldn't work. We have had some conversations with 1 or 2 developers recently in pre-development meetings that are looking at potentially partially market rate and partially low income, but they can't apply for TDHCA because the tax credits just don't cover those market rate units. But there are some developers that are looking at some innovative solutions, and I think that we will probably be before council either at a meeting or an executive session at some point to talk about the options that are coming to staff. So,
Thank you.
coming soon.
Thank you.
I have a different type of question, and tell me if I'm incorrect on this, but that there are other cities that, I'm going to turn this around and say, for those that are building market rate, to require that they have some that are the low income. I think in some cases, if they do that, they maybe get some density bennies or something like that. And we're getting a lot of those, but we don't see an application on those if there's not a zoning change.
Right, so we can't require a percentage affordable housing, but we already have in our development code some density bonuses and things like that if people are willing to include a certain amount of affordable
Yeah,
housing.
I didn't say require.
Right. If they're willing to offer, we do have some benefits or bonuses that they can request under our development code, but we haven't had anyone interested in that portion of our code, which has been in place since 2018 when we adopted our current development code. It's been around a little while. We haven't analyzed it, and I have a feeling that's something we'll do after our comp plan is adopted to kind of look at that and see if we can figure out why people aren't using it and if there's any way we can improve that part of the code. But it's there.
I was thinking it was, but like you say, nobody's asked about it, so it hasn't been in part of a packet that comes before us.
Right, and, we show that to our developers if they come in and say, we're doing affordable housing. We say, oh, are you? Look at this section of our code, but.
Though you may recall that I mentioned this when somebody wanted floors 6 and 7 last time, and they got it for, I'm gonna say for free, because we didn't do the density bonus. Just saying. Okay. Mr. Gleason, you're next, then Ms. Garza, and then I'll go back to Mr. Scott.
All right, thanks, Mayor. I've been supportive in these projects, and but I'm starting to really have concerns about the long-term budgetary consequences of this. Because, we talk about $3 million loss for 15 years. What is it for 25, 30? And I really want to see some additional data on this. So I'm glad to hear Ms. Reyes say that maybe have the demographer really look at this about what are the impacts of this from service side of things. And also, in every one of these applications from now on, I would like to see the totals of how many residences are we talking about in comparison to the relation to the size of our city. As the city grows, I don't mind seeing some of these, right? But if the growth slows down, we're seeing more of these, it has a much more bigger impact budgetarily. And look, and the other part of it too is we're seeing it now where we're going to have to expand our tax base to afford some of this stuff. So some of the people who are against some of these other ways to fund local government are going to have to take into consideration the only way we can afford to do these projects long term is to diversify our economy and bring in some other revenue sources, as we're seeing a downturn in the economy just locally already. So I appreciate the really deep discussion here, and I would really like to see each time we see one of these, how much has the community grown in relation to percentage of these units, so that we can kind of keep track of and correlate it to the overall growth. And I just want to stress to everyone, I am not, the 5 to 10 year, and we're getting and the pilot portion of it, I would like to codify that we require something so that we get something on the front end of it. I don't know, what equation we use to do that. I'm open-minded on that, but I would like to see some sort of a requirement. But again, my big concern are these 20 and 25 years from now, if we continue to see these, what impacts are going to have. So I really appreciate the discussion, and I really appreciate Ms. Reyes saying that maybe we can look at a fair amount of additional data before I'm going to be able to consider another one of these. So I appreciate the conversation on this.
Speaking of data, Ms. Reyes, could we get the approximate amount of taxes that have been lost, because we've only been having these 2 years maybe, and through maybe the year 2030? I think we know the value, at least when it was built. What they're telling us about, this can be pretty ballparkish, okay? And because we know an approximate value, we may know an exact value. We know what our tax rate is. Put it in a spreadsheet, and let's look at the dollars that we're losing per year out to, let's just go to 2030, and let's see, and then what the equivalent on the tax rate is. So the actual, like I said, dollars that we're losing. Do y'all want to see that?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, we need.
I'd also like to see the amount of tax income or tax, what is that thing we get monthly, the tax rate amounts.
You're not talking about sales tax, are you?
Yes, sales tax, thank you.
I don't know how that we could even begin to compute sales tax on that.
Well, I'd just like to see what the growth pattern is.
I think CPAs have a way of figuring sales tax for your income tax. If they have an idea of what your income is, we know what the approximate income is because these are income limited. Maybe there is a way that we could kind of, sort of get sales tax, but when you've got, and I don't mean this to sound ugly, but if you've got someone low income, what they're spending their money on is a lot more of probably a higher percent on food, which is not taxable than what some other people do. So it may not be your standard, it may be a little less, but at least we might have something.
But usually in that situation, they have assistance for food and stuff like that, so their taxes are going out for other things like cigarettes and gas and, other things that they need.
Oh, let's not talk about cigarettes.
Oh, you smoke?
No, just.
You trying to quit? What?
No, never did. But, okay, but Ms. Reyes, if there's something, because we'll know the income, we'll just, use an average, use what the maximum is, whatever. Again, ballpark, spreadsheet.
Just kind of see the growth from year to year, actually now. That could tell you.
See if we can come up with something, but I'll still make the contention that they'd be paying the sales tax anyway, and I'm concerned about the dollars that we're not getting. Because the sales tax isn't making up for it, because they'd be paying sales tax anyway.
But you're wanting to know the growth from these properties, or you want to know the sales
No,
tax
just
growth
the
in general?
Sales tax in general from year to year, how much is it growing by the population as it grows? That's
Okay,
what-
so maybe looking
Just
at a
get that.
forecast, looking at actuals, but then looking at a
Yes,
forecast
yes,
up for the
projection,
same,
yeah.
okay.
I
for the
think
same-
what you're looking at is he's looking at population versus sales tax over a
Yes,
period of time.
yeah, you can do that with a spreadsheet, you're real good
Yep.
at that.
Okay, y'all good with
Yeah.
gathering more data? Do you have something on that one?
I have a quick bit of
Y-
data.
Yeah, and Mayor, if I could too, Mayor, I completely agree with you that regardless, they're they're going to pay sales tax anyway. But it would be nice to at least have that data, so when so we might be able to see the spread of what the difference might be. But yeah, it's go ahead, Ms. Hernandez. I didn't mean to cut you off. You were getting ready to interject.
That's okay. I just wanted to share a quick bit of data. I know that it seems like we've seen a lot of sales tax exempt projects coming forward, but we're actually about 50-50. We have 23 total projects, 10 are tax exempt, and of our last, let's say 6, 3 have been tax exempt, so they're kind of balancing out, and they have over the years, and this is going all the way back to La Vista Retirement Community, Sunrise Village 2, which I had never heard of until I was looking at some of the tax exemption.
Really?
Today, there are some that are much older than my tenure here that I wasn't aware of, but Encino Point, Sienna Point, so we've had tax exempt properties for quite some time, so I think we could probably see how that has affected us over the years as we continue to add, but we are at about 50% that are paying taxes. A couple of them have some sort of tax exemption that I did not have time to research, but it's a 50% sales tax exemption, so it's in the tax code. We'll have to do some research on that. Property tax, all property tax, yes.
I think that data is what we need also, because what I was seeing is the first few that I encountered when I came back on council were all paying property tax, and now we're starting to see more not paying, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here and make a prediction that pretty much all we see in the future are gonna be tax exempt. That's just my guess, could be wrong. Crystal ball gets a little cloudy sometimes, but that's just what I'm thinking.
And while I'm here, I just wanted to remind the council that we do have the Workforce Housing Committee of council members Mendoza, Gonzalez, and Scott. So if we wanted to run any of this by them before we came back to the full council, I know we might be talking about a work session. We're happy to pull whatever data we're able to get and put something together for y'all.
I think at this point, this is a council work session, and maybe that's what we need to do, is lay out just some
That's
more
probably a good
thoughts.
idea.
And those, well, we can't decide anything tonight because it's just a discussion item.
That's a good idea.
But wanted to get some of the thoughts out there. And one of them is, can we legally require a pilot? Mr. Gary, do we know that? Or that's a question we need answered when we meet again.
I'll take a look. I haven't looked at it, but I think it's our local criteria. If we have the ability to say no altogether, that's a little different than a fair housing type question like was
Right.
asked, but I'll look a little closer for you.
Yeah, okay. I said I'd go to Ms. Garza next, then I'll come back to Mr. Scott, and then Mr. Gleason's got his hand up again. Ms. Garza?
Thank you, Mayor. I think you just proposed something that might answer some of my questions. So I'm just like curious as to how this conversation could be had in a more productive and meaningful way. For example, there was no supplemental documents in the packet, no glossary of terms, brief blurb or memo on how many of these projects we have, what practices we have used in the past. I guess it's like, this is what our community sees and like, right, like the online portal, and they're not seeing anything. So my question is like, how can we have a meaningful conversation alongside our community without background information? I also really appreciated Mr. Gonzalez's idea of asking what other cities are doing. I feel like that's kind of the energy we all have, just like hearing other ideas. And then I just wanted to add that I'm hearing a lot of concerns about how much money we're losing. When it comes to like compiling like information for us to contemplate in a more meaningful discussion, perhaps in a work session, I'm personally more interested in hearing how we can best use these types of projects in ways that make it worth the investment. Like instead of just being like, oh my gosh, like how much money are we losing, right? Yeah, just wanted to throw that out there.
To determine on how much money we're losing is to go about seeing how we can deal with all of this. And, you know, you will notice, you said there wasn't enough in the packet, and I won't argue with that, but I did have the affordable workforce housing policy put into the packet so that we had that information at least.
One way to look at the amount of.
Well, it's not online, so just wanted to name
It's in the
that.
packet.
But it's not on the website that our neighbors normally go get. Like if you click on that agenda item, it's empty.
I'm sorry, it's in the packet. Okay.
I was just gonna say, you know, instead of looking at it as losing tax revenue, that's a way for us to subsidize and support affordable housing. So just look at it in reverse.
That's the deal. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it because of that, but we need to know what that amount is so that we can, for the point that Mr. Gleason made, which is that, and I'm not going to put words in his mouth here, I'll say it for me, is we need more commercial and industrial. We need jobs. We need that in order to balance this out. Therefore, we need to maybe look at those a little differently than we have before, although we haven't turned down many. But I think that's the point, is not, oh no, let's not do this. It's how are we going to figure it out? That was the whole point, is how we can move forward with this, not
couldn't
let's
agree
quit
more.
doing it. Just, okay. You had something, Mr.
Yeah.
Scott, now your hand is
Yeah,
down.
I have some points I want to make. Actually, what you said about who is using these apartments is very important. I think you're right about that. It needs to be people that are in San Marcos. And I think Sierra from the housing, he still runs
Albert
it?
Sierra?
Albert Sierra?
No, he retired,
Oh,
and now
retired.
it's Ms. Lana Wagner.
Okay, so I had talked to him before, and I knew the applicants that were getting housing through him, they were put on a one-year list, and they had to be in San Marcos a year before they were even qualified to get on that. So with that, you can have those type of situations come in, and we can do it that way, as far as a control mechanism. Jude, comment
We'll
about.
need to confirm
Yeah, you
that.
will, that's fine, go ahead.
Okay.
Jude, with his upfront increase on the builder, charge them more to do it, you know, it's simple, you know?
If they're willing to give 400.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
yeah.
if they have it to give, I mean, they're gonna be spending millions on a project to benefit low-income people,
Yeah,
so.
but here's the deal. Another point to that was, Mark had said, you know, about the growth. Well, the growth is coming, you know, so those numbers may not apply right now, and they may not want to pay that much right now, but in 5 years from now, it may be double or triple, depending on the growth in this area. See, we don't know that, you see?
I'm not sure what point you're trying to make.
The point with that is basically because of the growth that's coming, you have to analyze how much it's gonna affect.
Are you talking about what percent of our population is
No.
this type of housing? Because I think that is important. If we have 1,000 new people come to San Marcos and 950 are in market rate and can afford
No,
that,
that's-
and only
that's a good-
50 are coming
yeah.
here, that's different from it being reversed.
Yeah, no, that's.
So I
good
think
point,
that is an
too.
important point.
No, I think it is, yeah, I
Okay.
don't disagree with you. But I'm saying between all these, though, I think we've got a good outline of what a solution could be. That was my point to that.
Okay, I'm writing this down. Did you have anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay. Mr. Gleason?
All right, thanks, Mayor. You know, and as far as the policy goes on this, you know, I'm sure that there's a lot of fluctuation over time for the need to 1, 2, and 3 bedroom. And I think that's something we should continue to look at least maybe, you know, maybe that's something we review that policy every year. I mean, I hate to kind of do that to staff, but if we're going to see these kind of things, we need to know who's on the waiting list, how many, what kind of changes are we seeing over time so that we can stay ahead of that curve instead of us making a reactionary decision a few years down the road when those have already stacked up, right? And the other part of it too is I'd like to see what our peer cities are doing. Like how many
Yeah.
projects are they seeing in correlation to their growth?
Yeah, that's on the list.
Are we seeing that more here? Okay, all right. And you know, Mayor, you said you paraphrased me very well. I will stress this one more time. If we want to be able to afford in this community to help subsidize some of these housing projects, we have got to diversify our economy. And we've got, and I want to just keep that in mind with all of these things we do. So I want to be able to keep up with that data. And I know that's really hard to do, but I'm sure there's projects that aren't paying property taxes, like Ms. Hernandez says, that we're not even aware of. I mean, we are, but I mean that we're not. It hasn't been the forefront for several decades now, right? And I'd like to see that accumulated data of exactly how many do we have in correlation to New Braunfels or Cedar Park or Round Rock. Are they seeing these same kind of things, and that we can review it all? So I really appreciate the discussion. I'm going to have an open mind on all of this. But, and I appreciate, and I'm sorry to staff asking a lot of this, but this is going to help make my decision easier. And also I can communicate this to the community, exactly what this all means.
Yeah, and when we talk about other cities, I think the, and this is census or other data that's already available, is the percent of people with different incomes. In those cities, and then how many Lightsey projects, or actually it doesn't have to be Lightsey, there might be some others that are not low-income housing tax credit. But if we could just find those, and those should be available, PDHCA or whatever, we should be able to find those fairly easily.
And Mayor, can we ask the developer to help provide some of this data and say, hey, you know, whether either they're doing a project in another community, or can they help potentially provide some of this data instead of our staff having to spend time doing it, to benefit the developers also. Whatever data they could provide is going to help take some strain off of us and help out too.
I think I'd rather our people find the data, because numbers can be used in different ways, and
They can, but they should be able to, if they're applying for a project in another city, they kind of have an idea. And I'm just saying, it's a partnership, right? I'm not asking to straight up provide the data, we trust it. I'm just saying they should help with that process.
They certainly could be helpful. Could we ask the committee to do a deep dive into the policy that we have now, section by section? It's only 7 pages. I'm concerned about what we require and what we don't require. It's really not in our document. We're relying on the government TDHCA list. If someone comes in and it's not that type of credit, I still want to see either access to services or a shuttle. I want to make sure we've got after-school programs for the kids. I want to make sure that we have things that folks who are doing what they can to pay their rent are not going to be able to afford to do for their children, but we need it done. I keep seeing in here, quote, "The city does not have a detailed needs assessment for the local community regarding specific wraparound services. Therefore, we don't know what to ask them for," I think. That's in here. And it's sort of like that when we look at zoning, we don't have neighborhood character studies yet, so just, you know, look the other way. Nothing to see here, go over there. So I'm thinking that if we keep putting that in here, perhaps we need at least a list, figure out what it is. So can we ask the committee to do a deep dive on the policy, look at the number of bedrooms things, look at the list of services that's provided, that state list, and see what we might want to put in our requirements, so that if it isn't one of these Lightsey projects, if it's not, and that only comes before us because they need our approval, correct? So if it's not a Lightsey project, they're not going to come before us? Would that be, so what I'm saying we need to do may not be applicable.
Correct. If it's a low-income housing tax credit project applying to the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, they need our approval to make that application. It's one of the check
Right.
boxes that they have our resolution. Any other multifamily would really just have to follow the code if they have the appropriate zoning, and we wouldn't necessarily see all of the things that they're doing for the residents there.
Well, I'm talking about low income in particular.
Okay.
So if somebody is coming in, what if somebody doesn't need TDHCA?
Then we wouldn't have any more of a conversation with them than we would with any other multifamily developer when it comes to site design, building design.
So basically, there's no point in putting requirements in our policy, because if we're gonna have a say-so to make those requirements, it's already being done by the state agency that's also going to monitor and make sure that they're doing it.
Yes.
Then never mind.
I did,
Okay.
may I ask a quick question while I'm here about the policy, and you talked about doing a deep dive? There is a handful of stuff in the policy not related to the LIHTC, the TDHCA.
Right.
Do we want the committee to go through all of that other stuff as well, or do we want to focus just on the low-income housing piece of it that seems to be the focus of the discussion today?
And that's a page and a half. At least that, but I think making note, because market and things change so rapidly, I think an annual review by the committee of the entire policy is probably a good idea, but the deep dive is on that page and a half of LIHTC for this discussion when it comes back.
Thank you.
Y'all good with that? Okay. So.
Mayor, I'm in complete agreement with what you just said. Thank
Okay, thank you. I think it was your idea, but it's still a good one.
I have one more recommendation, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
So I was wondering, perhaps this might be a good time to bring in like the equity staff member, just to make sure that there's also that perspective, you know, really focusing on like fair housing as a framework. So there's a lot of literature that is written on these type of programs and how they can be leveraged to truly and like negotiated to truly serve the most vulnerable. And there's things like talking about requirements and use of credit scores, like prior records, how people even qualify for this. And actually much of the literature says it's like getting rid of the local residencies is local residency preferences is most aligned with a more equitable housing framework. So I just think it would be helpful to have that perspective brought in so we could contemplate in a more full way.
That's excellent. Ms. Reyes, could we ask that our DEI person review the policy if she hasn't already?
Yes, ma'am.
And that she meet with the committee and they have that discussion that Ms. Garza mentions. And
Absolutely.
I think that was good.
I think that's a great point.
Okay, and the one last thing is pilot dollars and how they're used. I share Ms. Garza's concern about them it's payment in lieu of taxes that would, for these projects. I'm not totally comfortable with it just going into the general fund. I'd like to see how we want that money used, and I'm perfectly happy for staff to come up with some thoughts as to how we want to do that. But I would like to see us determine some guidelines about that funding. You know, if a percent goes to the library and a percent goes to here or to parks, just make sure that that gets wherever, again, with a DEI lens. And so are y'all good with that? So that we can talk about where this money goes instead of just lumped into general fund? Okay.
Yes, Mayor, and I think discussing these percentages of actually codifying of a certain percentage based off what they maybe would have paid and take a portion of that and divvy it out to the services that that Maine needed. I'm totally fine with that. Because that's probably how the allocation needs to be done, and that's something we can look at.
It's probably going to be looked at, as percentage of budget, but just because of the types of services and the costs that go with that.
But I'm happy to give y'all some time to think about it. And whenever this comes back as a work session item, that y'all may have a completely different view, and it may be great, but I don't know the answer to that now. But I'd like to see something specific.
It's gonna be a tracking thing too, to look at those monies, so.
It would be for the next year's budget or whenever we receive it.
Yeah, we'll get with our finance team though to see what that would look like.
Yeah. Now, if it were me, I'd be spreading it out over the next X number of years, but we're not going to get another payment, so, because of the choices that we have made. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mayor.
Council, I've run out of paper here, so. Is there anything else? Thank you all. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. I just wanted to plug the Poverty and Race Research Action Council has a report that talks about furthering fair housing and the low-income housing tax credit program that just came out in October of 2023. So that might be a good lead. Because I know it's like a monster to all of a sudden, have to switch your gears to going down the rabbit hole that is fair housing. So I just wanted to name that as something that I came across that seemed like a good resource.
Okay, if you would send that link, thank you, to Ms. Reyes, and could send it to all of us, doesn't matter. But make sure that staff has that so that we can include that as something to think about. Y'all good with that? Everybody's, yes? Anything else? Thank y'all for your thoughts.
The only thing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the only thing I had is I really appreciate this discussion, that we're being very methodical about this. There's some real long-term ramifications to some of these decisions. And so I really appreciate the conversation about what can we do for the community long-term that's best. So I really appreciate my colleagues and staff's time on this, and for all the applicants too. So I really appreciate the discussion. I'm glad we're going to work on this.
Yeah.
Very thoroughly.
Yeah, this agenda item came out of a discussion that Mr. Gleason and I had after the last one, when he so correctly said, this is not a loss of taxes for this year. It's a loss of taxes for many years to come in the future. And that's when, and I knew that, but it's when he said it that it really hit me. Oh my gosh, we really do need to have a conversation. So this was a good conversation. Thank you all for your kind attention to this, and we will move on to item 30.
The city council will convene an executive session pursuant to section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code consultation with attorney to receive legal advice regarding the following matters. A petition submitted to the city clerk proposing to repeal police civil service under chapter 143 of the Texas Local Government Code. B, the matter of state of Texas versus city of San Marcos, cause number 24-0267 in the 207th District Court, Hays County, Texas, concerning the city's enforcement of certain laws related to marijuana. C, an offer of settlement from Walton, Texas LP relating to a request to be released from the city sewer CCN and related development agreement and MUD consent agreement.
And council knows this, but for the general public, we post the same items on our 3 o'clock work session agenda. We can usually get these done at the 3 o'clock session as we did today. So there is no reason to go into executive session now because we've already completed that earlier. So if you would read item 31, please.
Consider action by motion and provide direction to staff regarding the following executive session items held during the work session and/or regular meeting. Consultation with attorney pursuant to section 551.071 of the Texas Local Government Code to receive legal advice regarding the following matters, just as stated above.
Okay, on item A, Mr. Gary, make sure that I'm saying this correctly. On item A, we received information. B, direction to staff, and C, direction to staff. Do I have those correct? Yes, ma'am. Okay. All right, thank you. And next is question and answer session with press and public. I don't think, yes, we did. We have 2 people signed up, and I'm not sure if there's anybody else in the lobby that I cannot see. As usual, you have 3 minutes to ask your questions. If answers can be readily given now, we might do that if we're sure that we can give a complete answer. If not, answers will be emailed. And first up is Maxfield Baker.
Hey, you know him, you love him. It's Maxfield Baker. So, my question is related to the last item and the low-income housing tax credits. Would you all consider at any of those discussions to reallocate your lobbying efforts, since so many of these concerns and questions are related to the TDHCA and what and how we can kind of obligate things? That might be worth looking into. Also, to Councilmember Gleason's point about diversifying our economic base, would you all consider to prioritize spec warehouses, since those don't seem to really add a whole bunch of tax dollars, and also consider it in the same context that you are considering these low-income housing tax credits, right? You're also giving away tax dollars to these developers as well. What is that comparison? Does that weigh as heavily on you? Gosh, I need to get better at writing things down. Another question I had was in regards to the civil service agenda item. At the break, I was asking Mr. Aguirre about why it seemed there was like a shifting of ground in what was expected and what was actually required. That seems to be interesting. I have been having conversations with Mr. Aguirre about the kind of ethics and the job duties that the city attorney has. And in my interpretation and reading, it would suggest that he should have been in communication with that organization to make sure that they clearly understood what threshold they needed to pass. So would you all consider having an agenda item in the future to discuss the jobs and duty of the attorney, city attorney, to ensure that they are there to help regular citizens that might have legal questions? The other question I had, I remembered it, about the Light C projects is, do we currently have code compliance going to low-income housing tax credit managed buildings to make sure that they are actually up to code? People that live there are often in a position that they cannot readily go and make complaints because they fear being kicked out. And we heard from Councilmember Joco Marquez several years ago that they lived at Sienna Point and it was awful and that it was a really bad place to live, but that was their only option, being a low-income member of the community at the time. Similarly, with the Light C projects, earlier one of the developers or developer adjacent folks came and spoke at the podium about asset management. Well, one quick Google search shows that asset management has quite a few litigation issues against them, some of which involve discrimination. So it would be interesting for our DEI, Grisel Perez-Carey, coordinator, to look into the management and the actual kind of boots on the ground. It might even be worth to have a community outreach to some of the low-income housing tax communities to give them a safe space to share anonymously these kinds of concerns, to make sure the projects that are receiving those development tax dollars are able to actually stand up to the expectations.
Your time is up, but you just gave me another idea of something that we can do to help people.
Yeah, and if any of y'all want to talk afterwards, feel free to hit me up. I'm always here.
If you would, hang on for a minute, because I want to make sure I've gotten all these. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone I can't see in the lobby? No. Council, I believe that concludes our program this evening. I don't see the other person who had signed up, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mendoza makes that motion. Mr. Scott seconds it, and
Ms. Garza.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Houston.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Gleason.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Mendoza.
Aye.
Mr. Prather.
Aye.
And Mr. Scott.
and we conclude at 8:28.